the home of inspiration every day.
Most people give up on themselves easily. You know the human spirit is powerful.
From news,
countries across the globe have been hit by the COVID-19 virus.
Views,
there's a global trend to see an increase in GBV incidences, specifically domestic violence.
Sports,
What's he say? It's a really good ball. It's Shabalala.
And music to inspire you every day. This is Vuga Online, your inspiration radio station.
Hi there and welcome to Healthcare Hour with Colleen. We hope that you've been having an awesome week and that you are really excited to join us. As you know, Healthcare Hour is all about healthcare professionals. It's about us understanding that healthcare professionals are people, for us to meet them, for us to get to know them, to see what it is that they do. It's also for us to improve the relationship between the healthcare professional and the patient, and of course the patient's family. I'm forever talking about communication in healthcare. And for us as patients to be educated, for us to know, for us to have autonomy and to know, okay, this is my health. I know my body the best of all. And for us to have a voice in our own healthcare. Of course, you know that this show is also about us getting information, about us talking about topics that Colleen, no, we don't talk about those things. Yes, we do, because, when we don't talk about what's impacting us, or we think we're the only ones, and also we think that there is no help, there are no solutions, and you must just go along on your own and that you're the only one experiencing what you're experiencing. So after the break, we're going to meet my guest and we're going to be talking about excessive sweating. Yes, bring your chairs, sit down, join us. But let's go for a break.
How do you know the life of personal coach you're about to work with is who they say they are? How do you know if they can do the job? At the Africa Board for Coaching, Consulting and Coaching Psychology, we can tell you. So, before you share your secrets and spend your money, check with us first. Visit www.abccccp.com or call us on 012-751-7608. The ABCCP, the professional body for coaches.
Welcome back. You're listening to Healthcare Hour with Colleen. As you know, I'm a coach. I love having people on my show to just be able to be real and to talk. And of course, my passion is healthcare. My guest today is Sanusha Naidoo-Hurrichund, and we're going to be talking about excessive sweating. But good morning or good afternoon, wherever it is that you are. Hello, Sanusha.
Hi, Colleen. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Okay, so I always say that the guest knows more about themselves than I could read a bio, for instance. So could you share with us what your background is and how you come to be in this excessive sweating topic?
Yes, it is definitely a journey that started a few years ago when I was pregnant with my second little one. And I had lived with hyperhidrosis for many, many years, since childhood. And I had experienced excessive levels of sweating, especially during my pregnancy. And it was at that point that I was adamant that I need to find a solution. I was working a full-time job. I was pregnant with this condition. During my first pregnancy, I had preeclampsia, so it was the excessive sweating and the high blood pressure. So very complicated pregnancies, and the sweating was not helping. And hyperhidrosis is a medical condition. It is how we know it to be is as excessive sweating, and it troubled me in terms of two primary areas. my hands and feet were the biggest challenges for me. And I had then gone to, look for solutions, and nothing seemed to work. And that's when I went to research treatments and came across iontophoresis and decided to bring it to South Africa. It is a condition that's well known abroad, and the treatment is well known abroad. However, not much has been done in the country to treat with iontophoresis. And so I decided that I was going to initiate that. And with a full-time job, I decided to bring the treatment to others like me, because I had trialed it, it had worked for me, and I was 39 at that point when I was sweat-free for the first time. And I became very passionate about the fact that I need to get this treatment out to others. And so here we are. And so my background is actually in people solutions, but I have made the jump into the healthcare space purely because I'm so passionate about helping people like me solve for a condition like hyperhidrosis.
Yeah. And so, yes, so you still are in people solutions, just
Very much so.
into health solutions for people. Yes. Okay, so before these big words for people, hyperhidrosis, meaning that you sweat too much, you sweat more than your body needs to sweat. And we'll go into iontophoresis just now, and we'll get to spell it out for people. But let's look at, so you sweat too much. How does that impact your world? How does it impact your life?
Yeah, so especially in childhood, what we find is that when you are, we find that most of our clients that start inquiring about treatment are usually, from the ages, I would say, from 9 onwards. And it's usually at that time when children are, writing for the first time, they struggle with pencil grip. And we find that parents start inquiring about treatment because, they are struggling with their writing skills. They then are referred to occupational therapists. They also struggle when playing in the playground, struggle with monkey bars because of grip again. So it starts as early on as since, at that point in one's life. And then as one navigates through adolescence, that's when you start dating. You don't want to shake someone's hand. You don't want to hold hands. You don't want to share a racket because, you are playing sport with somebody that sweats excessively. So it's those types of iterations that actually happen that make you aware that something's different about me. And what is very important about hyperhidrosis is it is really about excessive levels of sweating. It's normal levels of sweating is something that's actually important for our bodies, and it's a normal way of our body actually cooling down when we're really warm and really hot. So if you're burning up, that's a normal level of sweating. But what we experience, those of us who have hyperhidrosis, is our sweat glands are constantly working. Because there is an electrical impulse that's telling our skin that it needs to sweat. So think of it as a faulty little electrical impulse that's constantly wiring us and telling us that you need to sweat. And so we just try to short circuit that slightly to stop the excessive sweating. So those of us who have excessive sweating, we really dislike applying lotions as an example, because it just makes us even more greasy on the hands. We also struggle a lot with being bare feet. We live in our socks and our sneakers because it just tends to give us better grip. And laptops, touch screens are not our best friends. Fingerprints, biometric systems as well, not our best friends. And you'll find that many people that struggle with this condition shy away from those things, because you find that you've always got to clean your laptop, clean your screens, and you've always got to navigate these things that most people actually get to take for granted. So it is quite a challenging condition to have. And those of us who have it know firsthand how much we have to navigate differently. But we work around it. But the good news is that there's no need for that anymore. We can actually treat the condition using iontophoresis.
So I do know also that, as you mentioned, fingerprints become a nightmare because, and then also, oh, it's so easy, just a thumbprint here, just a fingerprint there, because it's often security access into your building or into your university. And then it's almost like the anxiety of, and my fingerprints aren't going to work today. And everyone's going to be standing behind me going, what's going on here now, And also another aspect is that when, just your hands, when your fingers and hands are wet, you can't touch paper.
100%. 100%. We've had, I've had a case not too long ago where we treated a 9-year-old, and she was actually struggling with her pencil grip, and her paper would always be dirty because it would collect, her hands would collect dust. And, her parents had reached out to say, look, she's really struggling. They're thinking of having her repeat her grade because of, the fact that her writing is not legible enough and her paper is always dirty. And so many of us who have hyperhidrosis would know that we usually use a tissue on our paper or a handkerchief on our paper. And the worst thing is writing exams or tests, because, that's when the floodgates open. And so for the next person too, for the next person who does not have hyperhidrosis, anxiety does trigger a normal levels of sweat, but in our case, it's far more. And so you're navigating writing an exam, but also trying to protect your paper to make sure that, you can still submit that paper at the end of that examination. So yeah, it's very challenging, and it makes you shy away from many things that others don't have to worry about.
Yeah, and I think it's also, I've personally seen somebody where they've changed how they hold their pen so that they almost, for most people when they're writing, they rest on the paper. But I've seen somebody like write in suspended air so that nothing touches the paper. Yes.
100%. 100%. It's many iterations of those things that happen with people. I had this habit where I would constantly wipe my hands on my legs, on my knees, on my clothing to dry my hands before a meeting, or before I would shake someone's hand, or before I would use my PC. And I didn't know I would do that. I also, I would not hold my little one's hand. I would hold her hand around the wrist. And when I was sweat-free for the first time, she actually noticed that. She said, "Mom, you're actually holding my hand." Because I used to hold her like this somewhat. It's those little things that you also sometimes don't even know that you're doing, that other people pick up.
And also something very lonely, because it's almost like you feel like and also it's like normal where you think, okay, maybe everyone else is like this too, but you don't talk about it and say, hey, let's look at your hands. Do you sweat like me? Yeah, and then also if they don't sweat like you, then it's almost like, oh, we can't talk about this.
Absolutely. I think that is the one thing that I share with all our clients when we do the very first consultation. So I meet with clients that are inquiring about treatment to talk through things like contraindications, to also look at their levels of sweat. And the first thing I always say to them is, the first thing I want you to know is that you're not alone. There's many of us, as much as 5% of the world's population actually struggles with hyperhidrosis. But because of the stereotype and the stigma that's attached to excessive sweating, I find that most people keep it to themselves. And so they do feel like it's just them. And so when I'm sitting across the table from our clients and I'm talking about the handshakes and how we dislike them, and I'm talking about living in sneakers and socks, and I'm talking about not like wearing flip-flops as an example, I see a different side to them come out, because they sit there so happy that somebody can relate to what it is that they're experiencing. And what's also important is that myself and our treatment consultant both struggle with hyperhidrosis. So we both know firsthand, what the challenges are. And so it makes us more relatable, and it makes us able to answer the difficult questions that they might have.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go for a break. And when we come back, we're going to dig into iontophoresis, but also talk more about hyperhidrosis, is about, what can sweat? Where can you sweat? Okay, but let's go for that break.
The Africa Center for Work-Based Learning is a professional development center for professionals who aim to improve their professional standing. This means that the learning programs we run are more than just academic programs. They are work-based programs that focus on leveraging your current experience as a professional to build your overall profile. A year down the line, the Africa Center for Work-Based Learning is developing into a preferred center for professional development in Pretoria, with 8 professional development faculties including accounting, teaching, entrepreneurship, as well as IT and many more. For more information, go to acwbl.org or dial +27 12 751 7608. The Africa Center for Work-Based Learning, where work is learning.
Welcome back. You are listening to Healthcare Hour with Colleen QVIST. My guest today is Sanusha Naidoo-Hurrichund, and we've been talking about hyperhidrosis. And for those of you who go, what on earth is hyperhidrosis? It means excessive sweating. And Sanusha has been sharing with us her lived experience of hyperhidrosis and how it changes your life, how you don't want to touch, for instance. Yes, that excessive sweating makes you feel like, oh, you can't touch paper, fingerprints don't work, touchscreens are a nightmare. And you also just feel like you're alone in all of this. So, Sanusha, explain to us which parts of the body can excessively sweat.
Okay, so typical hyperhidrosis, we find that it's usually palmar, plantar, and axillary hyperhidrosis, which is basically hands, feet, and underarms. Those are the focal areas. We also have to ensure that we are treating the correct condition, because we can also have other medical conditions that can have excessive sweating as a side effect. And so therefore what we are quite interested in when we first meet with our clients is to ensure that we are treating for hyperhidrosis. So we have a consultation, we take you through contraindications, we ask questions about other medical conditions to establish if it is hyperhidrosis. And also we have several questions that pertain to, do you struggle with night sweats, as an example? If it is yes, then it's probably another condition. It is actually not hyperhidrosis. And in terms of the areas that we focus on, like I've mentioned, it's hands, feet, and underarms. And what the treatment entails is really passing a mild current through those areas to be treated. And it's really a non-intrusive treatment. So if you picture a briefcase, you open the briefcase, it has 2 metal trays on either side. We then place face towels in there as a barrier to direct connection to the hands and the feet. And we then use warm water because it conducts the current better. And then we use a unit which is powered by a lithium-ion battery. So, things like load shedding and power surges do not impact the treatment because it's not connected to a live power supply. And we then run a very mild current, and we're talking about milliamps. And it is the milliampage that actually then goes into your electrical signals, and it actually stops your sweat glands from producing the excessive sweat. So we move from excessive levels of sweating to normal levels of sweating. Similar for the underarms as well. We use warm water, we use wet towels. We also use electrodes that plug into little metal trays. So they are like mini trays that you would usually see in the treatment that we use for hands and feet. And then we plug that into mini socks, which then we place into warm water, and then we place that on either side of the underarm areas. And so that's how we treat the underarm area. So our focus areas are hands, feet, and underarms. We have lots of clients that have been reaching out as well about struggling with facial sweating, so craniofacial as well. And we're currently looking at a solution for those areas. It will likely not be iontophoresis though, because as you know, we pass a mild current for iontophoresis. And so we are looking at solutioning. Our business development team is busy with that. And I'm hoping that we will have a solution for those of us who do struggle with facial and cranial sweating in the near future.
Yes. Okay, I imagine, although it's a very little current, I imagine that iontophoresis may not be suitable because of the brain.
100%. That's exactly the reason why. I mean, you can, if you go online, you see that there's lots of alternative iontophoresis solutions. But I personally, I'm not one for the, you do find that some are marketing facial treatment using iontophoresis. It almost looks like a mask. I don't endorse that. I think there's not enough research that's been done in that space. And so for us, we'll probably look at, a skin treatment rather.
Yes. Okay, so let's be the patient now. The patient shopping around for a solution that they think would be suitable.
Mm-hmm.
They come across iontophoresis. How do they decide, okay, is iontophoresis for me? And who do I choose to do it? Of course, in South Africa, there is not a huge amount of choice. I see also that you can buy the equipment online, but then you've also got to know, okay, I've got it. What do I do with it?
100%. And so that's where we come in as iontophoresis SA. We have personal experience using the treatment on ourselves, and we really are about supporting our clients through the journey. And I mentioned that it's a journey because we do not use any medication in the trays that I mentioned to you in the treatment. And so what it really entails is tap water iontophoresis. So we really do not use anything artificial when doing the treatment. So when a client inquires, and I mean, we're quite out there on social media. I'm extremely passionate about getting the message out that there's actually a treatment out there that is natural and non-intrusive. There are other solutions that do exist, but I'm very passionate about treating little ones as well, because, I struggled with this since childhood myself, and I know how frustrating it can be and how lonely one can feel. And so this is a solution that does not have side effects because there's no medication that is included. So what happens is a client reaches out, we then plan, to meet, we consult with them, we assess their condition to see what their levels of sweating does look like. Apologies. And what we then focus on is contraindications, like I've mentioned already. We also don't treat while, for female patients, we don't treat while pregnant. There's not enough research that's been done in terms of iontophoresis and pregnancy. We also don't treat if one has epilepsy or a heart condition, because sometimes people use pacemakers, and because we're passing a mild current, we obviously will not treat if that is the case. Also, we inquire whether our patients have any artificial joint replacements from injuries. Again, we don't treat if there's any instrumentation in the body. And so it's really about establishing what the individual is dealing with, where the focal areas are. Very many of our clients actually struggle with hands and feet. I would say about 80% of our clients is hands and feet, but we do find that the other 20% also struggles with hands, feet, and underarms, and then we treat all three areas. What we've also found is that, and we haven't been able to do, enough of research on this topic, but what we are finding is that we have to treat all focus areas if there is an issue. So as an example, if a client wants to treat just hands, but they struggle with hands and feet. We find that hands take incredibly longer to be, to get treated because of the fact that the other area tries to compensate. So the feet may try to compensate. So what we urge all our clients to do, and that is why it's important to meet and to have these conversations, is to unpack exactly where the problem areas are so that we can treat all areas together. And once we ascertain that it is definitely hyperhidrosis, and these are the areas we'll be focusing on, we then look at the treatment plan. And for most of our clients, what we find, and it is a medical treatment, so we have to talk about average timelines. Most clients have to come through for at least 10 consecutive days when we're treating hands and feet. Underarms as well, but we usually find that underarms takes about 15 days to treat. And when I refer to the timeline, I'm referring to consecutive days, because remember, we do not use any medication while treating. It's purely cell memory that we rely on, so our body's own cell memory. So that therefore we have to treat on consecutive days. So for hands, feet, 10 consecutive days. For underarms, I would say approximately 15 days, because the skin under the arms is quite thin. And so we have to obviously use a milder current when treating the underarm areas. So the journey, and that is why I refer to it as a journey, the journey entails that we sit with you, we explain the process to you, but we also guide you on a day-to-day basis in terms of what you need to be looking out for, when will you be peaking, and we take you through that journey throughout those 10 to 15 days.
Yes, so before we go for a break there, I can hear that there's a commitment to treatment then.
100%.
It's not I don't feel like this today.
It's absolutely not. Where people can, take a break. And we are quite passionate about that. And we really bend the rules sometimes. Sometimes we let our clients come through at 6:30 in the morning, as an example, because we just cannot have you miss the treatment, because we understand what the impact will be. It really does set you back. And remember, it is such a commitment to come out to us. We only have one branch in Johannesburg, and so it means people driving out sometimes during their lunch breaks even to get to us. And so we appreciate that, and it's constantly a give and take. We're very invested in seeing you through your treatment, but we also expect that our clients are committed enough to make sure that they don't miss treatments, because that is really ultimately what will give you the results. That consistency and not missing treatment is what will give you those results you're looking for.
And it can't be, I've got a board meeting today, so can't come today, but I'll come tomorrow. Because the body goes, no, we skip one here, let's go back to the beginning.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think you're talking about an important point. We'll talk to maintenance, I think, after we go to the break.
Okay, off to the break we go.
How do you know the life or personal coach you're about to work with is who they say they are? How do you know if they can do the job? At the Africa Board for Coaching, Consulting and Coaching Psychology, we can tell you. So, before you share your secrets and spend your money, check with us first. Visit www.abccccp.com or call us on 012-751-7608. The ABCCP, the professional body for coaches.
Welcome back. You're listening to Healthcare Hour with Colleen QVIST. This is VUCA Online Radio, your inspiration radio station. On the show, of course, we talk about things that we don't normally talk about. We talk about things that we just suffer in silence. And one of those is hyperhidrosis, which is excessive sweating. My guest today is Sanusha Naidoo-Hurrichund, and she's been talking to us about her own lived experience of excessive sweating and how she went scouring the world to find a solution. And for her, that was iontophoresis, and she's now brought it into South Africa. It is a system of a tray, it's a light current, electrical current that passes through hands and feet, and also for underarms. You described it as a briefcase almost that you open, and you put a towel down first, and then you put your hands in, and then tap water, and nothing else is added to the tap water. And then the brief current goes through. It's like a 30-minute session, isn't it? Okay. And from there, you need to make sure that you do like 10 days consecutively. how do you decide, like day 9, day 10, day 11? How do you decide, oh, you need another day?
Yeah, so we are quite passionate about ensuring that you're actually dry when you are dry. And those of us who have hyperhidrosis know exactly how debilitating it can be. So what happens is, and I share this with all our clients on the very first day when I meet with them. When we get to a point where we are 90% sweat free, we are at that point content to just move from that point forward. Very many of us would be like, oh, I can live like this. I mean, there's hardly any sweat. I'm not struggling with my laptop anymore. I'm not struggling with my screen anymore, my touch screen anymore. And it's very tempting to stop at treatment at that point. However, once our clients do, undergo the treatment with us, they see firsthand how adamant we are about treating on dry day +1. And what we mean when we talk about dry day +1 is basically we treat on the day when you've gone 24 hours sweat free, and on the next day. So so basically 48 hours after you sweat free, we still treat. And the reason for that is we're just telling your body that it's okay to be dry, but we're still treating you while you are dry. And at that point, and so we do various tests. We even do a needle and thread test, because it's those fine motor skills when we're using our hands and when we're consciously having to use our hands when we sweat the most. And so we have all these assessments that we do with our patients just before they are done with treatment. But there's a way of telling, and there's also a sensation. So those of us who have it also know very much about a tingling sensation that we feel on our hands and our feet before we are about to start sweating. And the moment we talk about our sweating, we find that the floodgates open again. But what happens with treatment is once you are sweat free, you still feel that sensation, but there's zero sweat on the hands and feet. Now, remember, I spoke about excessive levels of sweat. Now, also remember that, on a very hot day, if you're outdoors and if the next person is also a bit clammy on the hands, you will be clammy as well, because we're moving your sweating from excessive levels to normal levels of sweating. So you will still experience that, but when we are treating in an air-conditioned room, one should not be sweating. And so then we are able to assess, okay, you still have more days to go. And like I said, we have these tests and assessments that we do to ensure that we are treating you right to the very end. And sometimes it does take more than 10 days. Very often it does. Sometimes more than 15 days. I've had clients that go into the 20s. What is really important is to be patient. The process does, it will give you the outcome you're hoping for, but we just need that consistency.
Yes, in your body's time.
In your body's time.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about maintenance. So
Yes.
you've gone for your 10 or 15 days and you've done them consecutively, and now zip dry. And important that you said, not just drier than you were, dry. Okay, with 3 exclamation marks. So now it's maintenance time.
Yeah.
Okay. And I suppose a lot of people would say, oh, but why must I do maintenance? But when you think of it, like in healthy weight, we do maintenance. You can't get to goal weight and then go, right, that's it, now I'm done. Now I can eat anything. There's the maintenance of, did I put on 1 kilo, 2 kilos? But most people only wake up when they put on 10 kilos and say, how did this happen? Yes. So
Exactly.
maintenance. How does
exactly. Maintenance, and this is something that is a challenge for anybody that has the condition. Once we get sweat free, once we experience being sweat free, one actually forgets that you have the condition, and there's a little bit of homework that we give you at the end of treatment. We say to you, you're going to have to look out for when the sweating wants to come back, because it is a medical condition. And to your point, Colleen, you spoke about like weight loss as an example. You have to maintain, you have to be disciplined enough to manage it. The good news, though, with hyperhidrosis is that you will see a little bit of, we refer to it as glitter. We make it sound, a little bit more glamorous than it is.
Very sexy here.
We say to our clients, even if you see the slightest bit of glitter, you need to let us know, because it means that the sweating is trying to come back. But we find that usually that happens around a month after we've completed your consecutive days, after we've completed your initial treatment. And so we usually say we set a date for maintenance, and it has to happen over 2 consecutive days, which is in theory dry day plus 1. So it really is 2 days of being completely dry when we do your maintenance. And the whole purpose of that is because we do not want to experience that sweating or those levels of sweating again. So when you come for your maintenance, you're still 100% dry when you come for your maintenance. We then do the maintenance treatments over 2 consecutive days. And most of our clients come through on a Saturday and Sunday because it's just more convenient for them. And off they go, and then we see them a month later, and we set a date for them to come back a month later. Now, we do have situations where the sweating tries to come back before your maintenance or your scheduled maintenance dates, in which case we say to clients, that's your homework. You're going to have to look to see if there's any signs of the glitter on your fingertips. And if there is any, you let us know immediately. And then we usually try to fit them in on the very same day. And then we might even do a double treatment to cut the sweat again. And then we'll do another double treatment the next day to cut the sweat again. And if they're still sweating, we'll have to continue until they dry again. But most often it just takes about 2 doubles to get you sweat-free if it has started coming back. So that's really the journey again, and we're available 24/7. We work 7 days a week because of the nature of what we do.
Yes.
The sweating waits for no one. So we are available 24/7 for
So it's not a case
guidance.
of, hey, Sanusha, the glitters come back and you say, oh, I can see you in 4 months' time.
Absolutely not. We can't. We absolutely see. We fit you in for the very same day or the very next morning,
Yes.
so that we can just break that sweat pattern again.
Okay. All right. So now for people listening, I can hear them saying to me, what about medical aid? Does medical
Yes.
aid pay?
So unfortunately, not as yet. So what we find is that international medical aids do subsidize this treatment, but unfortunately not our local medical aids as yet. The manufacturer of the unit that we use for treatment is trying to get FDA approval, which is an international approval. And as soon as that happens, I think we will then be able to get our local medical aids on board. But until that happens, unfortunately, we are a cash practice.
So it's about then deciding it's an investment. It's an investment in your time. It's an investment in your money, but it's also an investment in your quality of life.
And I think quality of life is something that is priceless in terms of this condition. And when I speak to people, and I receive calls, I receive inquiries quite a bit. When I speak to people, I always say to them, I sound like I'm making a sales pitch, but it really is a life-changing treatment. It's only once you struggle with a condition like this and you see what it's like to be sweat-free for the first time, do you realize what a game changer it is. And so those moments are really those moments that keep us doing what we are doing at Iontophoresis SA. And that is why we're so passionate about what we do, because it's really about that self-care, investing in yourself, especially having navigated something that has been so intrusive for such a long time, and getting to enjoy those moments that you didn't really get to enjoy in the past is really something that people value. And so I would highly recommend, if people have any questions as well, I'm always available. I'm so passionate about what we do. And we're there. We absolutely are there to support on the journey.
So thank you so much, Sanusha. Thank you for also bringing hope and bringing light to the situation. I think it's also important, for somebody who doesn't have excessive sweating, we have no idea. You take for granted that we can touch, paper, that our fingerprints work, that, the touch screen works. I can hold hands with somebody. I can touch somebody, and so it's always good as well for us to know, when you don't experience something, how another person does experience it. And it's only when we compare notes and we speak out that you go, oh, I didn't know that. Yes. So thank you very much for coming to talk to us. You have been
Thank
a
you,
wonderful
Colleen.
guest.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity, and really, really excited for those of you who have hyperhidrosis, because there is finally a solution for you.
So thank you very much. You have been listening to Healthcare Hour with Colleen QVIST. Remember, if you have questions, please ask them. You can always contact me privately. If you have any questions for Sanusha, I can always pass them on to her. But know that you're not alone. As I said, you're loved, you matter, and you're not alone. And we'll see you next week.
The home of inspiration every day.
Most people give up on themselves easily. You know the human spirit is powerful.
From news,
Countries across the globe have been hit by the COVID-19 virus.
views,
There's a global trend to see an increase in GBV incidences, specifically domestic violence.
sports,
What's he say? It's a really good ball. It's Shabalala.
and music to inspire you every day. This is Vuga Online, your inspiration radio station.